What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully, you're having a very blessed and wonderful day. Today's video topic will be us discussing why the third Insider episode for Suicide Squad will easily be the most important one so far. Now, we are in the month of January, and for Deluxe Edition players, we are reaching that final stretch leading up to the game's release. Now, we've gotten 2 Insider episodes so far, and the second one really caught a lot of people's attention after the deep dive into the gear, and the loot, and the supporting cast, and also the return of Poison Ivy, now just Ivy or Kid Ivy as I call her from the previous games. Now, the story looks to be decent, the gameplay looks to be engaging, the gear and loot seems to be decently fleshed out as far as we can tell right now. The biggest thing left on the table, however, is exactly what comes next. The next episode will make or break the game for a lot of people, and that's me being fully honest. This is a live service game. There's supposed to be something for us to do post-story. What there is remains to be seen as of yet, but let's go ahead and talk about live service as a whole for a minute and then discuss how this translates in the Suicide Squad. So for about the past 2 to 3 years, the idea of a live service game could pretty much strike fear into the heart of any gamer off the mention of it alone. Outside of the major live service games that have managed to find solid footing in their spaces like Fortnite, Destiny, Dead by Daylight, For Honor, Rocket League, and more, there are plenty of other games that have crashed and burned trying to find solid ground to stand on. Now, the live service model has been around for quite some time, maybe as early as 2014 to 2015, and it has only gotten bigger since then. The main goal with live service games are to keep the games entertaining, keeping the gamers playing it for as long as possible and having it be engaging enough so that people will want to stick around, which can then translate into microtransactions, because as time has proven that the game is fun enough, people are more willing to buy various things like cosmetics and expansion packs in order to further tinker with their gameplay experience. Now, when it comes to live service, there are 3 sections to cover. You have short-term, mid-term, and long-term content. Short term includes the stuff that we deal with on an everyday basis, the stuff that we come back to play and check out either by ourselves, with our friends, whatever the case may be. We have a fun gameplay loop that doesn't get too tedious too quickly. New characters, skins, weapons, missions, events, challenges, seasonal things, and more in that area, right? This is essentially the game's bread and butter. There has to be something to keep a player base attracted to the game before the next major update, because once you start losing players, it's hard to get them back, and then even if you do, it's going to be even harder to keep them there if they come back, if the bread and butter is not where it's supposed to be. Now, mid-term content, that revolves around things like expansions, right? Those big story continuations and new modes that people love to see, even more so when they're done well. For example, Suicide Squad has an expansion where we need to return to Gotham in order to clean up one of Waller's messes, because while she was with us, busy and stuck in Metropolis, Arkham Asylum had a mass breakout, and now the squad's new mission is rounding up all of the escapees and uncovering a plot to expose all of Waller's dirty secrets to the world. Like, for example, the existence of the squad, for one, because they're really not supposed to be a thing. That is off the books. That's the whole point of the squad. If they get the mission done, good job. If they die, oh well, they can literally just write it off in the books and keep it pushing. That's really just an example, but expansions are what we're looking at for mid-term content. In terms of new modes, I don't know, you could add raids, you could add PvP, you could add, I don't know, community events, things of that nature, stuff for all of us to do, stuff that further pushes the game's life cycle even further. Now, long-term content, that's more so focused on quality of life updates, right? That's meant to improve the game and build on the original foundation that's already there. They could range from new mechanics and new systems being added in to full out new locations, new game modes, new and better ways to farm resources, things of that nature. Now, it's dozens of games that have gotten at least 1 to 2 of these right, but never all 3, and that's usually why a lot of them end up failing. Now, some games have managed to get all 3, which is short, mid, and long-term content, but one of them tends to be lacking compared to the other 2, but they still have all 3 regardless. What Suicide Squad has to do is ensure that the base game itself is still enjoyable without the need of having to spend any money. Granted, that's a bit easier because there's no microtransactions outside of the cosmetics, so that weight is definitely lifted quite a bit, but it's still a heavy weight in general when you look at what the long-term monetization process is with free DLC as a whole. What that process is going to be exactly is that all, and when I say all, I do mean all, microtransactions will be cosmetic only. You won't have to buy DLC characters, expansions, there won't be any gameplay boosters, the game's not going to be pay to win, it's all cosmetic. So if you choose to spend any money at all after getting the initial game itself, it will be on those cosmetic items like character skins and weapon charms and things of that nature. And that's primarily how the studio will be bringing in their money. That's what the process is going to be as far as we know. When new content gets added, it has to show that the game is changing over the course of time. Things cannot remain the same. If new content gets added and is decent or better, the player base will respond mostly positive. I say mostly because there's always, couple of outliers. It's a sign that the game is growing and changing. Look at Warframe, Genshin Impact, Path of Exile. Those games expanded heavily on what was already there and was able to get very loyal fan bases. Now, people are more than willing to spend money on a product that they can enjoy and can see has a future beyond the next 3 months. You got to be able to imagine or have a rough idea of where this game will be a year or two from now. Being 1 foot in and 1 foot out is almost a death sentence, because that line between being a live service game or a story focused game is constantly being straddled incorrectly, and that's also another thing that tends to kill games in this genre. Now, I'm not really saying that games can't do that at all, because I'm sure a lot of games have done that before. Final Fantasy 14 is an example that comes to mind. I'm saying that games often fail trying this method. Not every game, but games often fail. Now, if this is supposed to be a live service, then let the game be a live service. Go all in on that, because holding back is how you end up with a shadow of what a game is supposed to be. Live service games are not easy to make. I understand that. That never-ending cycle of money comes in, money goes out is the genre at its core. But in order for that to work in everyone's favor, we need to know what Rocksteady has planned, how far ahead they thought, what we can expect from DLC content, how often will we get it, will we have a roadmap, what content will there be to abide us in the meantime. This is why the third Insider episode is so damn important. It's our first official look at the game's future, and they can't really afford anything less than a decent first impression. This is going to be the key factor for a lot of people who are on the fence or thinking otherwise about getting the game. It's going to be a key factor for people deciding if whether or not they're going to be sticking around post-launch. We need a clear image, no vague teasing or anything of that nature, because I'm gonna be honest, unless it's done in a very specific way, vague teasing kind of sucks. In basketball terms, if we can't get a good look at what to expect in the first and maybe second quarter, give us something in the pre-game show that will make us want to stick around for the game itself, if that makes sense. Now, Suicide Squad in general was fighting a tough battle right now off the perception alone, because the promotion is kind of scattered. They're not really posting on Twitter as much as they should, but there are reasons for that. I understand that, but it still sucks, because I could say Twitter easily has the biggest convergence of the game's player base, and news definitely spreads fast on there. They post on other sites like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatnot, but not posting on Twitter is definitely kind of hurting them. But it is what it is at this point. I do hope that it changes down the line. And another reason for the uphill battle that they're currently having is that Rocksteady is known for making Batman focused games, and this ain't that. A lot of people ain't happy about it either, and y'all have been very vocal about that, sometimes to the wrong people, but y'all have been very vocal about it. But let me go ahead and hit y'all with this real quick. So Final Fantasy is a beloved series, right? Final Fantasy 13 is my favorite game in the entire series, because that's what got me into that whole series as a whole. That franchise was turn-based until Final Fantasy 15. Until 15. The main series games, that is, I'm not counting the side games in this. That franchise pulled a complete 180 and introduced a different playstyle from the previous games, and guess what? It worked out, because that set the stage for Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, the intermission DLC with Yuffie, Integrate, which is part 2 of the 7 remake, Stranger of Paradise, and possibly the next few games going forward with the series. And turn-based was working for Square and Final Fantasy. Those games were still selling. They have managed to build a very solid legacy off of that. They didn't have to pivot, but they did, and it paid off. Look at how it turned out for them. They took a big risk, and now they're reaping the benefits. Now, it was a lot of us asking for a Suicide Squad game. I will be honest. Before the movies, not really. It is what it is. But I understand that this also wasn't a game everybody was asking for in general. At the same time, we also get games all the time that people didn't ask for. Nobody was asking for Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Gamers loved it, and I believe it won Game of the Year in its respective year. No one asked for Hi-Fi Rush last year, and that game was a sleeper hit. Everyone loved it. Hades, another game that not a lot of people was asking for it. That did wonders in early access, and it did just as well when it fully released. Hades is sitting at damn near universal acclaim for many different reasons. It's a common thing in the gaming industry that the games we normally don't ask for ends up being some of our favorite games or one of the best games in general. There's one game that I thought I wouldn't like that much because I don't really play any games like that. That game has one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard put together in a game, and that is Ali Ali World. I'm getting off track, but my whole point here in my closing thoughts is that looking at the game through unbiased lens, it has the potential to be good, great even. I understand that, but at the end of the day, it still has to get over the same hurdle that most games in this genre can never clear, and that's decent content dropping at a steady rate, which improves the game over time, right? Decent communication between the developers and the community, right? Constant updates, things in that nature. And this Insider episode is the first real look into how that future is going to pan out as they expect. Not what's going to happen per se, but how they expect is going to happen. It's going to set the tone for the first few months in the game's lifespan. And I can tell you here, it will not be pretty if that first impression fails to hit. I still have solid faith that the game can succeed. I still have my worries though. Like I said numerous times, I've been burned before. I say it a lot. I'm not looking at this game through the lenses of blind love, because that's how you get blindsided. I'm taking into account the positives and negatives and using all that to form a full opinion. But at the same time, I'm just a guy on the internet who enjoys playing video games and talking about them. So my opinion doesn't really mean that much past a certain point. But with that being said, that's going to go ahead and bring us all to the end of the video. I hope that you all have had a very great time here. Let me know down in the comments below, what are you expecting to hear in terms of post-launch content whenever we get the third Insider episode? And do you think Rocksteady is able to pull this off to a successful degree? And again, if you have enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and smack the notifications bell so that you'll never miss out on any of my Suicide Squad related content, and I will catch y'all in the moonlight. Peace.